have been thinking for the past couple of days about what the formal episode. I don't know if this is gonna actually end up being the title of the of this particular episode, only because of how to kind of work the episode's title and thumbnail into the package that works for listening audiences to get people enticed, especially when this does go up on YouTube. But in my head, I like to call this episode somewhat the calm before the storm. I don't know what it is, but I just feel like a form of calm before a storm of movie news, a storm of gaming news. I don't know why. I just feel it in the air slightly, and it kind of makes sense. You could argue that it makes sense. Like it's in the calendars. It's literally stacked up because, as I mentioned in the past couple of episodes, this is the episode where it could be a little bit on the shorter side. It could be a little bit on the bland side. It's so much so that I'm actually kind of bringing some stories that were actually developed a couple weeks back, and they're not necessarily breaking, but I also do kind of want to talk about them a little bit, only because, I got my 2 cents, and I got some things to say that I found kind of inquisitive about as far as where this can go in the peripheral landscape for video gaming. But also because, like I said, it's the calm. It's the one where I'm like, I'm gonna chill back, relax a little bit with this episode, because I know that on the next one, we got, what do we have to cover? We got D23, the D23 Expo from Disney, which is likely after Disney Plus Day on September 8th, probably already happening by the time you listen to this. Some shit might just break. Some stuff might get revealed. Some trailers might come out in regards to the MCU, in regards to what's going on with Star Wars, and then also some much more internal Disney plans, whatever it is that they're probably remaking at this point, because that's all they're doing. I mean, fuck, Pinocchio is about to come out, and that's a remake. I mean, the remakes keep trudging on. And what kind of pains me a little bit about some of these remakes is that they take these directors who were once like really big name directors, and now they're just kind of saying, Disney they're kind of directors for hire. Like, you don't recognize their branding or their style in these movies. This new Pinocchio movie, I had no fucking clue that it was directed by Robert Zemeckis. Back to the Future, Castaway, Forrest Gump, Robert Zemeckis, and he's doing this Pinocchio movie, and no one's saying that. There's none of the marketing is saying from director Robert Zemeckis. Maybe like a trailer here or there, but it never reached me. The way I found out was through IMDb. When I looked it up, I had to manually look it up. Like, who's directing this? And then prior to that, I'll probably say the big case prior to that, right before the most notorious case, is Lion King. That's directed by Jon Favreau, who gave us a really decent remake in the form of a Jungle Book, and then, of course, the kicker to the entire MCU, Iron Man. And yet, you never really feel that he directed The Lion King. It just feels like a movie that was made. That was like AI made. Anyways, before I trudge on into this tangent, I can't believe I just went into a little bit of a mini rant there. But welcome, guys. This is David. Welcome to episode, 6 of the DarkspiderCast, 6 of Season 5. And like I mentioned before, it's the calm before the storm, because we got D23 lined up with probably whatever it is they got lined up for the MCU in regards to theatrical releases and Disney Plus shows. The new rumor going around is that we're probably going to get our first teaser trailer of Secret Invasion that's going to debut on Disney Plus. Probably a full-length trailer of Wakanda Forever. I'm kind of doubtful on that one. I feel like the trailer just happened, so it's probably going to be a little while longer before we get a formal full-length trailer that's not a teaser for Wakanda Forever. But possibly whatever could be coming afterwards. What they might drop, who knows? We might get the official online drop of one of the 2 trailers that was shown only at Comic-Con. For either, was it Comic-Con or CinemaCon? I think it was Comic-Con. Anyways, whatever went down with either Ant-Man, Quantumania, or what was the other one? Guardians 3. One of those 2 is because I think Ant-Man comes out in either February or March, and we're already in September. That's kind of 5 months away. My money is that they're gonna drop the Ant-Man trailer. They could potentially drop the Ant-Man trailer. Out of those 2, that's the likely one. So we got D23. And then, that's kind of going throughout the weekend from, September 9th to September 11th. We got also on September 9th, September 8th is Disney Plus Day, so we're probably going to do some shadow drops leading up into D23. September 9th is the Disney and Marvel Games showcase, so we might get some introspective looks at whatever they got cooking in collaboration with each other, collaboration with other projects. We're finally going to get a deeper look at Star Wars Jedi Survivor. And then, of course, the one that I'm looking at, or the one that I'm looking at and going, are they going to show it? And if so, should I have my laptop, my camera, everything at the ready in case I need to do a reaction and a breakdown and a review and a theorizing sort of shit for Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Now, could they potentially show Marvel Spider-Man 2 at this Disney and because there's a part of me that thinks maybe they can, and then there's another part of me that's like, I feel like Sony is just that stingy. Sony is capable of being that kind of company to actually look at Disney and be like, nah, that's going to be for a showcase. Leave it alone. You can take everything else, but we'll even give you Wolverine, show a little bit more of Wolverine, but Spidey's our boy. We're going to keep him over here. I don't know. Now, one thing that I find kind of interesting is that right around this time, on Twitter, there's been apparently some I don't know if it could be considered leaks or just off the record comments by apparently some Insomniac employees saying that people are happy with how Spider-Man 2 is turning out. Like they're calling it that it's exceeding expectations, that investors are happy, and that everyone's getting kind of blown away by some pre-alpha footage, and that we as consumers and Spider-Man fans, we are just not ready. We're not ready for what they could potentially show. So the fact that they're talking about this now, and we got this potential Disney Marvel showcase coming up here in this upcoming weekend, I'm like, what are you guys trying to say? What are you guys trying to say? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, you can bet your ass I'm gonna be keeping my eye on the feed just to see if there's anything that's worth talking about on camera. So who knows if any of that stuff that's Spidey related will make it into the podcast next week? Only because that's stuff for the niche channel. So I might not I'm either not going to cover it at all, or I'm going to cover it, but in very quick strokes, because most of my content, most of my opinions on that stuff and my reactions to that stuff is that's Spidey related or Marvel Spider-Man 2 related is going to be on those videos or whatever content might go up on that channel. So we got that, like I mentioned, D23, and then just a few days later, like the middle of next week, we got the rumored, and I have to put emphasis on rumored, the Nintendo potential Nintendo Direct that's being rumored. That could be Zelda heavy. And then from the 15th to I think the 17th or something like that is Tokyo Game Show. So a lot of stuff there that's also being speculative of. So we got stuff on the movie side, we got stuff on the Marvel side, on the gaming side. I'm telling you guys, it's gonna be. This is the calm before the storm. Mark my words, and that's why I kind of just take it a little bit easy, despite already going into some theoretical tangents here at the beginning. Kind of want to take it a little bit on the easy side with this episode, because I know that there's not going to be a whole lot of time for pleasantries and whatnot on next week's episode. So I kind of want to just keep things a little bit on the level headed this week. So because of that, the intro here is not going to take up too much time, except just to let you guys know that if you feel like it's feeling a little dry out here in regards to going to the movies, you know, the summer movie season's kind of winding down to a close. But I feel like out of all things to, you know, put things in perspective of what really is a quintessential summer movie blockbuster, you should check out one of the founding fathers of the term blockbuster for the movie theaters. And that, my friends, is a little movie called Jaws. Me and the girlfriend went and saw Jaws on Saturday, specifically Saturday, September 3rd, because this also happened to be National Cinema Day. And how appropriately it was, because it was National Cinema Day, and to celebrate, a handful of movie theater chains, I think I might be wrong about this, but I think the only one that kind of abstained from this, and I don't know if it has something to do with how badly affected they were by COVID back in 2020 and whatever was going on with MoviePass or whatever was going on with their Stubs program or their marketing issues or their stocks, what have you. But I think the only company that didn't participate in this was AMC. I could be wrong. But almost everybody else, Cinemark, Regal, Of course, Fandango, pretty much any company that you could kind of interact with in Fandango, except for, like I mentioned, AMC. But I know for a fact Cinemark, Regal, a handful of others, even Alamo Draft House, this with their scarce number of locations, and then even some from Europe, even some big name movie theater chains from Europe that are very predominant over there, participated in National Cinema Day by pretty much offering any movie and any ticket for any format $3 a pop. $3 per ticket for any movie in any format, which means that me and the girlfriend were able to watch Jaws in IMAX on Saturday, and each ticket was only $3. Yeah. One of the greatest movies of all time. I don't know if I've told anybody here publicly on either podcast format or in video format, and a pretty good amount of people that I know personally do know this. But Jaws is one of my favorite movies of all time. I love the movie to death. I think I've seen it already about 6 or 7 times, grand total in my lifetime. It should probably be more by this point, but I'm glad to say that at least one of those times was in one of the most proper formats to ever grace that film, or for that film to be graced upon, and that is IMAX. Me and the girlfriend were able to watch it in IMAX on Saturday, and it was oh my god, it was just, it's funny, this movie is damn near fucking 50 years old, and yet still watching it in IMAX, it felt like a ride, it felt like an experience. And I'm also very happy that they, whoever was in charge of putting this thing back in IMAX, whoever was probably the manager at Regal, or whoever was in charge at Regal of overseeing the reintroduction of Jaws into the theater, especially on National Cinema Day, made sure to treat this movie with respect, because I personally feel like, being the skeptic that I am, things could have gone wrong as far as projecting a near 50-year-old movie on a very, very big scale screen format like IMAX. Because a lot of things could go wrong. The screen could be very blurry, could be stretched out, could be overexposed or underexposed, and then when you get to the audio, could be muffled, could be shoddy. I don't know, but pretty much like 90% of the aspects of this film that made the experience of watching it in IMAX was treated with care. They handled what was likely a 4K restoration. It was clean, it was pristine on a 4K, I'm sorry, not 4K, on an IMAX screen. You know what I'm saying? It's a movie from 1975, and yet it looked clean, vibrant colors. It never looked like it was out of focus or anything like that. It was, oh my God. It was a cinematic experience. And then the sound, this is where that 10% kind of falters a little bit, because for the majority, like 90%, the sound was perfect. The other 10% was a couple of lines of dialogue here and there were mixed just a little on the bassy side that you can't really tell, especially when other sound effects are happening. A great example is shortly after Quinn's Indianapolis monologue, which is one of the greatest monologues ever made. They start singing, and then eventually Bruce, our beloved shark, starts getting a little antsy, and starts banging up against the orca boat, the orca ship, the boat. And so it starts, creating mayhem. And I remember there's a moment where when they're trying to like move the ship, move the boat, whatever, Hooper says a line saying "busted shaft" because he's trying to like get the thing to run. He says the phrase "busted shaft," and you can audibly hear it in almost every time that you see the movie on home media, Blu-ray, 4K, whatever. But here in IMAX, I could not hear him say that at all, because all you can hear is just the banging of the shark up against the boat. So a couple of little lines here and there like that were mixed a little weirdly. But overall, the sound design, the overall audio tracks, and the video resolution for this movie were fucking perfect. And of course, you cannot screw up the audio in regards to that musical score track with John Williams's epic, iconic score of the dun 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 dun. It was bassy when it needed to be. It was sharp when it needed to be. It delivered the scares. My girlfriend as well has seen the movie a number of times, and she was still rifled in her seat when Ben Garner's floating head comes up. One of the best jump scares ever put to film, of the head coming out of the hole of the boat. Like, you hear the little sharp like violin strike. It still hit. in the theater, and it got people, and not just my girlfriend, but I think I saw a couple of other people in the corner of my eye go, oh, like that, like, and they knew it was coming. They knew it was coming. Like, I'm pretty sure the majority of the people in that theater were have seen the movie, and I imagine that that's pretty much everybody that was engaging with the film, which is pretty much anybody that was either in my age bracket or up, because everyone underneath was not. And that's the bittersweet moment of watching Jaws in IMAX this past Saturday, because it was very much a definitive way of watching one of the greatest movies of all time to celebrate National Cinema Day. It was damn near perfect, like a perfect encapsulating way to celebrate National Cinema Day. But it also kind of brought about a bittersweet moment of how we're never, mark my words, we're never going to get movies like this again. And you know why? Because as the movie was going on, and we had all these moments that had these terrifying moments of the shark attacks, blood in the water, some gore effects here and there because it's Jaws, but not too gory to where it's fully R-rated, and it then transcends into like a Moby Dick style adventure in the last hour of the movie. Out of the corner of my left eye, I do see a little girl. She's probably like, I don't even want to say that she's in the single digits. I'm going to say maybe about 10 or 11 years old. And the reason why she caught my attention was because it wasn't so much her that caught my attention. It was the fucking cell phone screen that she was holding in her hand. As shit's going down up on the screen of, like I said, one of the greatest movies ever made. And I'm over here and I can blatantly see her going through a feed of some kind on her phone. Yeah. If it's not Marvel, if it's not this big, flashy mile-a-minute experience, I don't know. I'm at a loss for words, because I remember I told my girlfriend afterwards that that's what I witnessed, and even she was like, "Are you serious?" And this is why Tom Cruise is doing what he's doing. This is why we often have the discourse constantly going on Twitter as far as what's cinema and what's not. Why Scorsese said the things that he said when he said them about the Marvel cinematic structure and what those movies are doing now for the movie theater. And I'm kind of slowly starting to see a little bit of his point, especially after watching that last She-Hulk episode. I'm going to take a moment to appreciate that segue. I honestly felt like I kind of outdid myself. I was able to tie in the newest review for episode 3, the controversial episode 3 of She-Hulk, with Scorsese's statement from a few years back. I'm pretty proud of myself. I'm going to give myself a pat on the back on that one. Breathe it in, and now I'm breathing it out. So let's get the elephant out of the way. The one that everyone's talking about. This is how big of an elephant, or how I should probably say thick of an elephant this is. It's so thick that people are talking about this more than exactly what happened in this episode. Can anybody just outright tell me exactly what unfolded as far as story, as far as development, character development with episode 3 of She-Hulk? No, because everybody's too fucking busy talking about that end credit sequence of She-Hulk twerking. Yeah, and that's precisely my problem. It's not the actual act of her twerking. It really isn't. I mean, I made a joke when I was watching the episode and that scene happened. It was me, my girlfriend, and my girlfriend's sister. And we were, all three of us were watching the episode. Oh, actually, and her two siblings, actually, both of her siblings. And this scene happens, the twerking goes down, cuts back to the credits, and the first thing I say, and I meant that satirical. I wasn't actually like seriously, more, metaphorically injured by this, but just to kind of break the ice a little bit, I said, Tony died for this, and everybody laughed, and that was the reaction I was garnering. I wasn't like actually deeply hurt, because literally that night I moved on and I focused on whatever needed to be edited or what needed to be played or on with my day, whatever. So the actual She-Hulk twerk. First of all, even prior to the show, She-Hulk has always been kind of like one of my like as some demographics will call it, waifus. So, witnessing this up on the screen, I was kind of like, well, visually, hey, hey, fuck it, I don't mind it. But I guess my deeper problem is that that's the problem. Is like everyone's talking about this twerking thing and getting all divided on it. My biggest problem is that there was nothing else more of substance as far as the writing of the show for this particular episode to overshadow the twerking scene. You get what I'm saying? That hurts me because it's like, okay, then what am at like Metal Gear Solid, what are we doing here? Just to suffer? It's with episode 3 that She-Hulk has finally hit the tier where I'm not going to full on label it as like a shitty show or a bad show, but it has transcended into the tier where I'm in no hurry to watch it anymore. I'm not. Because to recap episode 3, what goes down? Well, for one, She-Hulk is trying to make an argument for Abomination, a storyline that we were already kind of getting the cusp of towards the end of episode 2. But of course, we saw that he was in some kind of fighting ring, and I thought to myself, okay, Wong is going to have a legitimate explanation. Wong comes in this episode and says, yeah, I took him to go fight so I can train as Sorcerer Supreme. And I'm sorry. I'm like, why do you need Abomination to train? Why? Like this tie-in feels kind of forced. And then later on, I was trying to give the episode and the writing a little bit of the benefit of the doubt when they kept hinting of how Wong keeps being late, and the entire time I was like, yo, it could be because of Wanda's attack on Karmatage and Multiverse of Madness. Holy shit, it's going down. Yeah, no. It was foolish for me to think that they were going to be smart enough to actually incorporate that and tie that in. No, he shows up late and he just says, my apologies. Anyways, here's my statement. I'm out. Poof. It's, like I said, shit is just happening. Here we are 2 episodes later. I still don't know who the fuck Titania was. I know more about Titania, the lady that showed up at the end of episode 1, because of just context to find on Twitter through either viral marketing or Wikipedia pages or just other people talking about that. I'm like, you guys shouldn't be telling me this. The show should be telling me this. Didn't I complain about this too a couple episodes back about how other people were, I think about like Hulk's power level versus She-Hulk or whatever, and other people were telling me like, whoa, he's not going full this or no. It was the whole, the reason why She-Hulk is able to keep her consciousness while she's She-Hulk is because she didn't go through the trauma that Bruce did. And I remember saying, that's a cool explanation. That's a cool backstory that actually makes sense. It does. Now, why didn't the show tell me this? It's the same shit. Why is the show not telling me about Titania? You just get these like every episode so far has these quick little news bits of like TMZ people and Good Morning America people saying She-Hulk is doing. I'm like, okay, so is this all that we can rely on instead of the characters actually acting upon themselves to give us some cool character development? Yeah, I guess so. Because here we are, a third of the way through the show. We're officially a third of the way. It's going to be 9 episodes, 3 episodes down. And I'm still not giving a shit. Okay? And then, furthermore, Abomination / Emil Blonsky. So, if any of you are familiar with pretty significant internet personality on Twitch, especially amongst the fighting game community, Maximilian Dude. He's friends with a couple of guys, and they go by the name Yo Video Games. And every weekend, they kind of come together to create these streams and talk about the stuff that's going on in pop culture, mainly through the fighting game community, but also through stuff that they're watching. Eventually, they talked about Rings of Power, but they also eventually got to She-Hulk. And one of them, I'm blanking on his name. I think his name is Kenny. It's definitely not Simmons, because Simmons is the other guy that's always wearing like sweaters. I think his name is Kenny. I might be wrong about that, but he said something that that made me have an epiphany and go, holy shit, he is right. He is so right. And I think he even heard it from someone else. They turned Emil Blonsky / Abomination into Trevor. Trevor Slattery, a.k.a. Ben Kingsley's character from Iron Man 3, who then came back in Shang-Chi. It's that character. Like in terms of mannerisms, in terms of how he performs, I'm like, holy shit, it is. This ain't Emil Blonsky anymore. It's just Tim Roth in a cell saying, "Oh yeah, I got like these soulmates, and I could do like the abomination thing, like whenever I want." It's like it's not consistent with who, and some people will argue like, "Well, it's meant to be a comedy. It's meant to be." I'm like, then it's not for me. Then it's not for me. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but it could not be for me. So that whole aspect of this episode of Jennifer trying to make the argument for this guy that I of this Emil Blonsky that I'm not caring for anymore. And then on the side story, we have this Asgardian elf that's shapeshifting as different people that got entangled with the misogynist caricature from the last episode. The whole female over there. I'm going to talk to it. They keep that going, of course. And it's funny because for a little moment there, I thought that the episode was going to be clever because there was this montage where they do address the Me Too movement and how things are female, but they could also be their own. But at the same time, it also felt kind of cynical because there was one moment in that montage where there's a dude who says something that is legitimately valid, where it's like, you want great empowering female characters, then create female empowered characters instead of just taking something and then gender bending it. It's like, okay, so you're still kind of, borrowing. You know what I'm saying? You're still kind of borrowing. It's like, then create brand new female characters that are badass and are gonna make me want to like buy the merch and buy the things. And they included that in here almost like they're poking fun at it. And that's why I'm like, I'm just not getting this good vibe from the writers and directors. I'm getting this weird, cynical vibe. Not enough to like go crazy on the internet, but just enough to be like, well, okay, then I guess I'll just won't watch. I'll do the adult thing and just not watch. It's not for me. Or, like I mentioned before, put this show in the tier where it's like, okay, if it's up on Disney Plus and me and the girlfriend are together, we're at home and we have half an hour to kill, I'll be like, oh, hey, yeah, the new She-Hulk episode's on. Let's check it out. But am I going to be like in a rush to, like, guys, I'm sorry, but I'm at the point where should the 4th episode drop and it's Thursday and I'm on Instagram and a reel pops up on my feed that spoils something from episode 4, I might not care. I'll be like, yeah, well, there it is. That's kind of where the show has dipped to. Where I'm like, all right, well, it is what it is. What's next? Wakanda Forever? All right, I'll be there for that. But right now with She-Hulk, it's not getting to the point where it's got its hooks into me. Jennifer is still kind of annoying, especially with that opening line where she's like, remember whose show this, like I'm getting it. I'm getting this vibe where the writers and the directors and maybe even Tatiana herself, I don't know whose suggestion it was, but they're trying to troll. They're trying to get a rise. And I'm like, all right, well, this is kind of like a game now. So instead of actually getting mad and being like, oh my God, they're ruining Marvel, they're not. It's just, it is what it is. She-Hulk is what it is. It's not for me. I'll just move on and watch the next thing. Like, that's all I can do. You know what I'm saying? Like, or watch it whenever it's on as like a nice, easy pastime. I've accepted that it's not going to change. This is the style of humor. This is the style. And even in that same stream, I was mentioning the reference to Maximilian Dood and his friends and them mentioning how they turned Abomination into Trevor Slattery. Within that same stream, Max himself said something that I also kind of feel. The show just feels weird. It just feels weird in the way that it's kind of put together and edited and written in a way where it's like, yeah, I feel like you're trying to jab at men, and I just don't feel anything kind of smart within the commentary, within the way it's pieced together as a story. It ends on what should be a cliffhanger, and yet I don't give a fuck about this cliffhanger. I don't. These Wrecking Crew, I know they're from the comics, but I'm not caring about them. I don't care who their boss is. My girlfriend's like, who's the boss? And I'm like, I don't care. I don't. It's just like, oh, I'm like, I really don't care. And it's funny. How's that supposed to be a cliffhanger if they ended up not getting her blood? If you wanted us to be intrigued, then they should have gotten her blood. Yeah, even if the skin is hard, like by other means, maybe like she hurt her nose or whatever. But no, and then the episode just ends. It's like these things needed to be longer so that we can sit with these characters. We can actually gravitate towards them. And I'm not. I'm not gravitating towards any aspect of She-Hulk from a writing standpoint. It has nothing to do with her being female. It just feels like something is transparent and hidden within the show that just feels like you got this other viewpoint that you're just trying to push. And I'm trying not to use the word agenda, but that's all it feels like. And in turn, we're getting some pretty meh and weird writing, weird directing, weird assembly of the show from a storytelling perspective that I'm like, I'm not caring. And if I'm not caring, then why should I continue watching? Even when Daredevil shows up or whatever the next cameo may be, okay, I'll watch the scene online. Or I can't believe I just said that for fucking She-Hulk, but that's where we're at. So if you're already listening to this and episode 4 is out, yay. There might be, I honestly am at the point where you guys might hear me talk about episode 4 next week, or you might not. I'm legitimately that unsure of where I'm going to land with this show. Stick around to find out. And the disappointment continues to truck on with this week's What I've Been Playing, because I got somewhat of a juggernaut here to tackle, and that is Pokemon Legends Arceus. Finally sat down to play this. It's been on my backlog. It's been wrapped in its cellophane ever since. Well, the game came out in January, but I think I actually got it in either March or April, a couple months later, because there was I'm trying to remember. I think it was 8-bit or something. It was a third-party seller, but they had it going for like $20 off. So I got myself 2 copies, one for my buddy Greg, aka Surface Assassin, and then for myself. And so, but there's been other stuff coming out since then that I kind of kept getting pushed and pushed and pushed. And finally thought to myself, okay, we're kind of in somewhat of a lull this month. There's only one game that I'm kind of interested in. And even then I still want to wait for the reviews on. That's Splatoon 3. And then that's it. And then the next big day one game is thankfully a game that comes out on Game Pass, so it'll be free. And that's Plague Tale Requiem on October 18th. We got a month and a half-ish. So I thought to myself, okay, let's try to get 2 juggernauts out of the way. First, Pokemon Legends Arceus, and then secondly, maybe, and this second one is a definitive maybe, Elden Ring, maybe. Because I know that, and that's why I said maybe, because I know that once Plague Tale Requiem comes out, it's kind of a straight shot here for the remainder of the year. Because we got that. It's probably going to take a week or 2 to finish that. At the end of the month, we also got Gotham Knights, which I might only play while I'm streaming it. And then off stream, I'll play Plague Tale and probably catch up on Bayonetta so that I can get the first 2 done before Bayonetta 3 comes out or before I tackle Bayonetta 3. And then we got the beginning of November, God of War Ragnarok. And then that's probably going to take a couple of weeks to beat. And God only knows what I'll be doing in this latter part of the year, since I don't know if work's going to get better in a form of momentum that's at least going to make it foreseeable to possibly move out by the end of this year, so I might be busy with that. And then in December, we got Callisto Protocol. That's why it starts to snowball a little bit. That's why I figured with this lull, let me finally get Pokemon Legends Arceus out of the way. And so I've been playing that now for a few days. I'm getting on the cusp of about 10 hours logged in. And the reason why I said the disappointment continues is because I'm in the minority here, where unlike a good chunk of, because I've kind of dabbled in a couple of reviews earlier in the year and watched some live streams, like from Bob Wolf, Girlfriend Reviews, etc. And almost everybody across the board says that the opening 3 or 4 hours of this game is super boring and trudgy. And even though I can see that, because it's walking you through so many things that you've already done in the past in other Pokemon games, such as what Pokemon are, what types there are, how do you catch one, how do you fight one, etc. There was a dimension to it all that I found just a little relaxing. I'm not going to say I liked it, but the whole time I was never thinking to myself, oh my God, this is so boring or this is so trite. I was just like, oh, it's a different perspective. There's no usual, there's a professor, but I guess there's a there was just an approach to it where it's not like, oh, you're the valid new trainer. No, you literally fell out of the sky. And I have no choice but to interact with you because you fell out of the sky. I'm like, all right, well, that's a little different. There's a lot of moments in this opening prologue that just feel different enough for me to go, this ain't that bad. It's not like your traditional. You don't have you kind of have a rival, but you also kind of not because in the end, there's no big bad guy team. You know how there's always a Team Rocket surrogate in every one of these Pokemon games. This time, it doesn't seem like there is. There seems to be some kind of weird force, weird. I hate to use this word because I feel like Nintendo's been using it to death since Breath of the Wild came out, but there's this big calamity forming around that's infecting like Pokemon, causing them to go into a frenzy that might be connected to the rift in the space-time, which is where you fell out of, and that's why you don't remember why, or why you have modern clothes in a setting that's supposedly hundreds of years in the past, etc. To me, all of that stuff was intriguing enough for me to go, you know what, these opening tutorial hours, yeah, there's a couple of things here and there where I wish I could just kind of like skip. But I just never thought of myself, I just was never really bored. I don't know, maybe it's because of, like I said, the way that it's able now to transcend the two-dimensional plane of like the top-down stuff from older Pokemon games that kind of made me think a little bit of my experiences with Pokemon Coliseum or Gale of Darkness, etc. And I was like, yeah. And I do like the free roaminess of it all, being able to just, come up to Pokemon and actually see them in the distance, seeing them on the plane and throw the Pokeballs at them to either engage or simply just run and kind of dodge out of the way. Going into tall grass doesn't automatically mean that a Pokemon's just going to pop out of nowhere. I was vibing with it all. And again, this question mark of what's causing these Pokemon to go into a frenzy, talking to the commander and then leveling up. Everybody's very no bullshit about things. It doesn't feel super fluffy, super like, oh, you're a trainer. I can't wait for you to, you seem like a nice young boy who's going to be able to be the biggest Pokemon trainer there is. No, it's like, no, you could die. Like, I think, I can't remember who it was, but that was, I think it was like one of the captains. Legitimate says, we'll find out if you're fit for the survey corps because you're going on a mission tomorrow. Worst case, I'm paraphrasing here, but she pretty much says, worst case scenario, you're going to die. I was like, okay. There was a little bit of grit to it all, to the way that some of these characters are interacting and the situation they're dealing with. And I'm like, I'm liking this a lot better than your usual Pokemon game. Okay, I don't know why people are over here going like, oh my god, it's boring. Until we get to the research points, this is right now my big axe to grind with the game. And grind, I really do mean. Because the game then puts you in a crutch where it's not going to progress unless you reach a certain star rating or star level, whatever the hell it's called. And in order to do that, you need to gain research points. And to gain these research points, I know that there's probably like some tips and tricks on how to, escalate things, stuff that I will research to indubitably. But it looks like it's going to take forever. And in order to gain some of these research points, you pretty much have to do the stuff that would typically be optional in Pokemon games, which is to accumulate as much information as possible into your Pokedex. And I'm over here going like, I don't want to do that. I just want to gain a really strong 6 Pokemon team, level the fuck up, and go to town on some of these legendary Pokemon, these strong leaders, what have you, and become the best. And the game's telling me like, oh, that's cute, but if you want to progress, you're going to have to do those research tasks. And like I said, the way that the points are accumulating, it's taking forever. I am for sure going to have to look up, I don't want to say a cheat, but just some kind of little mini guide to just kind of walk me through what are some quick ways, some expedited ways to gain research points a whole lot quicker. Because right now, the way I'm kind of going about it, trying to use this move for this Pokemon this amount of times. This Pokemon has to use Bite this certain amount of times. This character needs to use an Agile form. Now, that's one other little interesting aspect about the game is that there's certain moves that you can toggle between either using the normal version of the move, an Agile version, or a strong version. The strong version is obviously going to pack a harsher punch, but it could cause your Pokemon to be delayed a move. That the next time the opposing Pokemon's going to strike you twice instead, and you're just going to have to take it. Agile is pretty much vice versa. Your moves are going to be a little weaker, but you might be able to strike twice in a row without the other enemy getting a move into you. And that to me, I'm like, okay, it's kind of changing the dynamics, but overall, the battle system still kind of feels a little bit of the same, and a little bit of the environment is also kind of on the empty side. And I still can't get over the fact that here we are, few years into the generation, and even on docked, I still am looking at the game going like, yeah, Nintendo, you go ahead and do that 720p goodness, because this does not look 1080p. Some menu items might look a little sharp on the 1080p side, but some character models have the jagged edges, things are popping up in the background, and it still reminds me of just how easy it is for a company like Nintendo or a developer like Game Freak can get away with this. Charge $60, but if God for fucking bid, if PlayStation or Xbox does it, they get just completely dragged through the mud online, on Twitter or what have you. It still boggles my mind that this still happens. Because trust me, it still happens and it's still there. I don't expect it to change anytime soon, because why would they? Nintendo's making hand over fist with these Pokemon games. Anyways, so until I can find myself a nice groove in order to get back into the rhythm of things, to expedite, because I'm still intrigued by the story. I really am. This is actually one of the finer, one of the better, I'm not going to say it's great, but one of the better, more intriguing and hooking, that makes sense, hooking stories for a Pokemon game in a while. And I just don't want it to get bogged down by how grindy it is to get these research points, that it's just going to take me out. Because, earlier, prior to recording this, I was actually playing a little bit, and I was like, it's losing me. I'm gravitating towards watching videos of Kitchen Nightmares on my laptop than to play this, and that's for a game that's on the Switch, where I can just have it be either on the go or in docked, and yet I'm detaching. Completely the opposite of where I was in hour 1, hour 2, or even hour 3. The 3 hours that people were complaining were too boring to begin with. And I'm over here being the minority, giving it the benefit of the doubt. And yet these research points, I'm like, why did you put this in the game? Why did you? And then when we get to traversal, there's moments where it looks like it's going to benefit traversal because you're able to ride certain Pokemon to make things a little bit quicker, a little snappier. But then sometimes it could feel a little wonky on the controller. Character falls into water and can't swim, and therefore I can't cross certain areas, and then some hills are just too steep that it looks like your character's going to be able to walk up them, but then they can't. It's like, okay, so where can I really go? So exploration's just a little at odds with itself. So it kind of combats a little bit of the free roaminess that it was advertising for quite a while, that made me go, yeah, that's the game. Because when Diamond and Pearl Remix came out, I was like, get that out of the way. You know what I'm really looking forward to? Pokemon Legends Arceus. That's the shit right there. And so now, to be about 10 hours in and go, I don't know about this, guys. It's making me a little worried. I'll keep you guys updated, because from what I remember reading on How Long to Beat, the game is stationed to be at about 20 to 25, maybe 30 hours long. There is a part in the menu where it kind of hints that that's probably how long it's going to take, depending on how many frenzied Pokemon there is to calm down. Because like I said, there's no antagonistic force yet, except for this mysterious force that's causing Pokemon to go into a frenzy. So I was like, okay, that's cool that it's not your traditional 8 gym bosses, gym leaders. There's no Elite Four. There's no rival that you have to overtake. There's this really unique, thing going on. And I really do want to see it through. I just don't want to feel handicapped by these research points and this grindy aspect to the game that's just going to bog it down. And I'm hoping that it turns around in the latter half of the game, and I'll hopefully report it on some better tidings come next week. But right now, I'm a little nervous for Pokemon Legends Arceus, because if things can't come around, I'm scared that this may be the final nail in the coffin for me in Pokemon games. Because if this is the direction they're going in, then I don't see myself picking up Scarlet or Violet later on this year. And much like I was doing last week with Spiritfarer, that was honestly what I was playing all along. The only real full-fledged game that I was playing outside of testing more and more things out with Spider-Man on Steam, specifically the Steam Deck. And there has been a development that I can't really talk about too much because, once again, it's going to be content for the niche channel, for the Spider-Man Batman channel, because it is related to running Spider-Man on Steam Deck, where I was having some problems to the point where I thought to myself I was going to have to abandon the idea of actually not only running Spider-Man on the Steam Deck, but also trying to see if some of these mods can actually run on the Steam Deck and have run smoothly. Because it's one thing for it to load up and be like, oh my god, Homer Simpson is swinging throughout New York, and then it's another thing for only to be able to capture only like a few minutes of that gameplay, or actually not even a few minutes, a few seconds, and then have the whole thing crash. I'm not going to say that that's exactly what happened, but it kind of puts things into perspective as far as whether or not this is something that's salvageable, something that could be used for content, something that could be actually captured, and then another thing to just be thrown out entirely. But there has been a development where I was able to get things rolling. The only thing I guess I'll kind of talk about in relation to that here is that I was about to abandon the project because there's apparently a step in the modding process that requires you to transfer the game to the SD card, the micro SD card, which I didn't really have for the Steam Deck up until I came to the realization that I had a 400 gigabyte Nintendo Switch branded micro SD card up there on my shelf that had like Bowser on it, and it had the blue shell coated on the card itself, that I got for like $40, which is quite a deal considering that regular MSRP for these things is like $180 for a 400 gigabyte micro SD card that's Nintendo branded. It's not only official Nintendo license, but Nintendo branded. It's got the blue shell and a Nintendo brand logo on the goddamn card. All right, it has it right there. And whenever Nintendo does that sort of stuff with like, Hori and Power A and all these other different companies where they make peripherals and accessories for the Switch and they're officially licensed and they got the logo on them, they sometimes give that upcharge. That is just bullshit, but they do it. And so I had that, and I thought to myself, well, my Switch already has a micro SD card, a pretty beefy one. I think it's a 256 or something like that. My phone's got one. I think it's also a 256. I might be wrong about that. My GoPro has one. And I know that with the Steam Deck, I don't want to go and be switching cards in and out, so that I know that could ruin some of the data saved onto them from different systems. It's like switching brains between bodies. It's like after a while, things are just not going to click, especially if I take one from the Switch and then put it into the Steam Deck, or if I take a brand new one, put it into the Steam Deck and format it in a way that's just not going to be readable by any other device. Who knows? It's my first time figuring all that stuff out. Long story short, it seemed for a while that card was not being recognized by Steam Deck. I tried a number of times the same method, and then I tried different methods on how to format the SD card either through the Steam Deck itself, through the Linux system, and then using an adapter to put it into my laptop, which is a Windows laptop, and then trying to format it that way, and it wasn't being recognized. I don't know what was going on, and for a while there I thought, oh, well, if I can't get this step right, then I won't be able to mod Spider-Man, which means this video idea, it's tossed out. Luckily, through no real method of my own, I popped it back into the Steam Deck, and it works. It recognized it. There it was, and I was able to transfer Spider-Man onto it. I was like, what the fuck? And I've heard Steam Deck doing this sort of stuff. I remember Bob Wolf, he was trying to play a game through Steam or through an emulator. No, it was through an emulator where the emulator itself was running like shit for like a multiple amount of times. And he thought, oh, this thing is not going to work with this particular emulator. I'm going to have to mention in the video. And then when he sat down to make the video, he ran the emulator and it ran perfectly. No problems. And he's like, what the hell? Like, it was running terribly every single time that he tried it. And then that one time, and then since then, it has not worked badly. It has been working just fine ever since. So I've been hearing a lot of stories about how the Steam Deck is just weird. It's like a mold of clay that you just have to, chisel out and mold into working in your favor until it finally just does, and it stays that way. It's like Play-Doh. I guess that's what modular devices with a Linux or PC-based system inside of them are eventually going to do, especially if you're a tamper, if you're a hacker, if you're a modder, if you like to, customize your own shit. And that's one of the beauties about the Steam Deck overall. Like a lot of people, if you're a huge fan of like building PCs and modding stuff and emulating things and being able to toggle things, both hardware and software-wise, the Steam Deck is going to be able to check all those boxes. Is pretty much what I'm trying to say here in my process of trying to get Spider-Man to get modded. Outside of that, like I said, I don't really want to disclose too much because most of that content is going to be regurgitated into that YouTube video. So you guys will have to stick around and look forward to that. The thing is, though, the reason why I wanted to present that little anecdote involving my process of modifying Spider-Man on the Steam Deck is because I do have one article here that I did find kind of interesting that will serve as the perfect segue into the brief articles that I want to cover on today's on this week's episode before we get into the nitty-gritty of next week's episode, which is going to cover the Disney+Marvel Showcase, the Ubisoft Forward, rumored showcases and presentations and things like that. So this first article is about, and there's going to be a very, consistent theme going on with these three articles, all involving hardware, peripherals, and accessories. There's a very cool and cohesive running theme going on right here that I do think is kind of funny. But this first one is involving Valve and their consideration already for a Steam Deck 2. This is the article over from IGN. Quote, in the months following the Steam Deck's launch, demand for the handheld gaming PC drastically outperformed Valve's expectations. In response, the company has now revealed that it's definitely thinking about creating a successor to the original Steam Deck. Yesterday, Valve released a 50-page booklet about the Steam Deck, and I do remember hearing about this. Like, it's a digital book that you can download for free, which I think is pretty cool. As pointed out by Wario64 in a section of the booklet titled "The Future: More Steam Decks, More Steam OS," Valve reveals its plans to support the Steam Deck for years through both new hardware and software versions. Then they go on to quote a little bit of, like a brief passage of that booklet itself. It says right here, if I can find it, just in the future, Valve will follow up on its product with improvements and iterations to hardware and software, bringing new versions of Steam Deck to market, the booklet reads. The company is also looking to incorporate community feedback in building the next Steam Deck, allowing for a more well-rounded experience. This is a multi-generational product line. Valve will support Steam Deck and SteamOS well into the foreseeable future. We will learn from the Steam community about new uses for our hardware that we haven't thought of yet, and we'll build new versions to be even more open and capable than the first version of the Steam Deck has been. And then there's a screen grab here from Twitter, yada yada yada, from the booklet itself that Wario64, like I said, presented. Previously, Valve president Gabe Newell spoke to IGN on the Steam Deck's launch, revealing that the product's high demand at launch pushed the team to explore more options for the future of the Steam Deck. I'll go ahead and call it right there because then IGN just goes on to blow their own article here. But the reason why I wanted to bring that forward is because, yeah, the Steam Deck is such a nifty little device. I guess it would, the pricing, because I know I've already heard some people already say that, if there's ever kind of like a discount. First, I don't know why, but I just get this strange feeling that you will not be seeing a discount on the Steam Deck anytime soon. Like, not even this year. I would even argue not even next year. I would argue probably the year after that. And even then, I would say it's probably going to be entering that cycle or that time period where you will start to hear rumblings about a new peripheral, a new iteration of the Steam Deck 2. My only wish, you could also call it a concern, but at the same time, knowing Valve, I just don't see them doing this. But that's why right now I want to label it as a wish, as a desire, is for them to simply just not go the Apple route of just calling it the Steam Deck 2 or the next Steam Deck, the new Steam Deck, or whatever, and they barely change anything. Like, give us some legitimate overhauls on some things that people have already come forward talking about the system, whether it be having it be easier to access certain parts on the inside from a modular standpoint, a better screen. I think I remember some people saying that, they kind of crunched the numbers as far as value, as far as cost and all that stuff, and They do think that the resolution on the screen could be a little better, like an even 1920 by 1080, or if you want to keep it at the 1280 by 700 or 800, 900, whatever the resolution is currently right now, make it an OLED screen. Keep the resolution the same, but give us that high contrast, great color spectrum. So one or the other, or if possible, both. I would probably say that I would happily pay like an extra $100 if it means we get a full-blown 1080p screen with OLED capabilities. I mean, I that's a very tall order. I understand that. That's a very tall order, especially with demand and how they're barely, I don't want to say barely, but now finally hitting a sweet spot as far as production is going. So there is a little bit of a checkbox list. I would say for me, it would be a better screen. The internals themselves, I would say for the form factor that it's in, it runs just fine. I personally don't know how much more they can squeeze in as far as a graphics card and a processor. I just know that, again, I don't want to divulge too much because this is going to be talked about in the main video when it goes up on the YouTube channel, but during my time where I was simply just playing Marvel Spider-Man prior to trying to install mods, and I was just seeing how the game runs in general, running directly from the Steam a client, either in Linux mode or the Steam OS menu in the regular Steam menu mode, and having the system kind of dictate for me exactly what the right parameters of graphical fidelity are for Spider-Man. There's times where, for the most part, like 66% of the time, I was amazed because I was playing Marvel's Insomniac's Spider-Man in the palm of my hand, like Doc Ock said. And I was astounded by that I was able to swing, fight bad guys, and be Spider-Man in that form factor. But on the other hand, it was just a little distracting to just see how much artifacting and blurriness there was going on in both the foreground and the background to get this thing to run at least at a consistent 30 frames a second. Maybe even on occasion 40 frames, but like I said, that led to some results where I kind of winced. I was like, ooh, it's cool to have this portably, but if anything, it just kind of drives the desire to want to build my own PC rig so that then I can pick up my playthrough here through my Steam client or my Steam account on an actual capable hardware that's going to be able to run that ray tracing, run those high quality graphics, 4K possibly. Because it just made me think about that. The easy compromise here is that you're able to take it portably, but it's still not meeting, and I wasn't expecting it to meet 4K visuals and ray tracing and all that stuff, but at the same time, there's some instances where, like I said, New York, in real life looks prettier than how it does here, and that's saying quite enough lot considering how murky and dank New York can really be. At least that's what I hear. So, yeah, there's instances where I do think that the internals could be better, and of course, with every passing year, there's new chipsets, there's new motherboards. Nvidia and AMD are respectively both working on new stuff, Intel and AMD, as far as the processors. The technology is always advancing. That's very hard for me to dictate. Even someone who's not, Digital Foundry, who's not a PC developer, who doesn't really build PCs and knows too much about the teraflops and all that stuff, can really know exactly where the limitations are then set for something like the Steam Deck. But I know that with every passing year, I'm pretty certain that Gabe and his team are over there going, okay, what else can we put on a potential Steam Deck 2? For me, like I said, on the outskirts of it, it's more so about the cosmetic stuff, the better screen, better ergonomics, because right now the ergonomics are not bad, but maybe find a way to compromise the weight so that it doesn't feel so hefty at times. There's times where I do need this thing to either lie on, flat down on the table or on my lap, and I can't really be holding it up with my arms because I do start to feel a little bit of the strain on the forearms, especially when enough time has passed. So a little bit there could be helped out as far as the physical nature of playing the Steam Deck overall, and then maybe just some way to have a friendlier approach to docking this thing, because right now I know that you can technically dock it with like a USB charging port or charging dock of some kind that has HDMI to then go to like a monitor or whatever. Not a lot of people really know that though. I feel like maybe if there's a way to make docking friendlier, the way like docking and switch, the switch and being able to take it in and out of the dock to play portably, it just, to me, feels more welcoming. And I hate to give, some credit over here to Nintendo, because like I said, every time that they do something awesome, they do one or two things that are not, and rather anti-consumer. But right now, it's more appealing to dock and undock a Switch than it is to hook up a Steam Deck. And I know that dedicated Valve dock is coming, but it's been delayed. It's been delayed now, and I'm pretty certain that not even a good chunk of the consumer base knows that it even exists. So I kind of wish that, that's another thing that I wish for them to do with the Steam Deck 2, is just to make it a little bit more of a competitor to the Switch, in a way where people will look at this thing and go like, yeah, I kind of want to order one. And maybe, stretch out. I don't know how the legalities work here. It's possible that it's just not possible. That, I understand that it's probably not going to happen, but at some point, I would like it if Valve could simply just be like, all right, we're going to start expanding to mass retailers. You can now pre-order the Steam Deck 2 or order the Steam Deck 2 through Target, Walmart, Best Buy, etc. And that way, it's in people's hands a little bit more conveniently, and everyone can talk about it and give Nintendo that competition that they so rightfully deserve. But technically, at the end of the day, that's just Gabe Newell and Valve collectively saying, that's something that we're looking into doing, purely speculative, purely forward-thinking, and, just kind of gestating around the thought of creating a Steam Deck 2. Let's talk about some things that are for sure definitely happening on the more console-based side of the industry, and something that, the timing of these two kind of, the things that are going on between these two. I think console wars are coming back. I don't know if but it's funny because the console wars are brewing again, only this time it's not from gamers, it's not from consumers, it's from the actual makers and figureheads of the consoles themselves. And I want to save a little bit of that back and forth between PlayStation and Xbox right now, as far as deals and buyouts and things like that both have said, for next week's episode. And the reason why I want to save it is because I feel like I need to do a little bit more research. I've only seen like the subsurface stuff of what Jim Ryan has been saying, what Phil Spencer has defended, what's going on right there. But I feel like I need to do just a little bit more research and look more into the articles of exactly what it is they're talking about, and develop a much more formal stance, because admittedly right now in front of the mic, at this very moment, I just don't have anything like that. What I do have is two articles here, one of which is a little bit on the older side because it is kind of stemmed from Gamescom, as last week's episode covered Gamescom, with all the different announcements. Dead Island 2 is making a resurgence, Gotham Knights was showcased, Jeff Keighley being Keighley with his usual shit. But one of the things that was talked about there, and I'm kind of glad that I waited to get not only more details on this particular asset, this particular product, but also because of the competition then coming forward saying, yeah, well, check this out, and kind of pit the two against each other here, is a brand new controller for the PlayStation 5 from Sony, entitled the Dualsense Edge. So this is an article from Tech Tracker, or Tech Radar, I'm sorry, Tech Tracker, I don't know where that came from. Tech Radar. Quote, with the Dualsense Edge finally being revealed, that's what it's called, the Dualsense Edge, we now know what the PS5's long-rumored Pro Standard controller looks like. The Dualsense Edge was announced at Gamescom 2022 Opening Night Live presentation, the one that I covered a couple weeks back. Sony debuted the controller at the showcase with an all-too-brief teaser showing off the upgraded controller and its bespoke features that put it some notches above the regular DualSense controller. So they did show a trailer. It was one of those like more than likely CG, but possibly it could be actual product footage just with fancy lighting kind of circumventing it, and then a couple of CG shots to show parts being swapped out here and there, that flashy stuff, but nothing too involved in what exactly the features are and what you can really do with this brand new controller. Going back to the article here, Sony is the last of the three big console manufacturers to offer a more advanced controller for its system. Microsoft led the pack with its Xbox Elite wireless controller, and then again with the Xbox Elite wireless controller Series 2. Then there's the Nintendo Switch Pro controller, which is more standard but offers remarkable battery life over the standard Joy-Con controllers. I feel like that one's bit of a cop out, the one with Nintendo, because it just feels like another option. It's not the Pro controller just feels like a regular controller. It's just the option of having the Joy-Cons be in regular controller format. You get what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that that's a fair comparison. Like, the Pro controller is not in the same league as the Elite controller from Xbox, or now this new DualSense Edge from PlayStation. To me, that comparison personally didn't make any sense, but I digress. Now that Sony has thrown its hat into the ring with the DualSense Edge for PS5, what can we expect? So I have the article here exactly kind of breaking down the stuff that is being speculated and then the stuff that's confirmed. So the stuff that is for sure confirmed is that Sony's Elite controller is called the DualSense Edge. It is still currently TBA as far as release and when you can pre-order. And what you can play it on is obviously just the PS5. It's not going to be compatible with the PS4. It doesn't make sense for it to do so. Going back to the article, it says, at present, we do not know how much Sony will charge for the DualSense Edge, though we can make some educated guesses, myself included. Microsoft's Xbox Elite Wireless Controller Series 2 retails for $179.99 here in the US, so we'd expect Sony's take on a Pro Standard controller to sit somewhat in that ballpark. I agree. I would say, knowing PlayStation, they're probably just going to round it to the even $200, especially since recently with the price increase on the PS5 console itself across various markets around the world, I would say, why would they not charge it a little higher than the Xbox controller? You know, it's probably going to be that even round 200, maybe even more than that, maybe even 220, 230. It would not surprise me. It would genuinely not surprise me if they do go in that direction. Why would they? I don't know. It's a little cannibalistic, but again, I digress. That said, with Sony recently pushing up the price, oh wow, they even said the exact same thing. I'm like, yeah, it's probably gonna round more to about $200. Now, as far as features, let me go ahead and skip ahead. Basically, a lot of people are speculating, this article itself as well, saying that it's probably gonna get like a 2023 release. I don't see it coming out this year. I agree. It's likely going to be in the ballpark of like the first half of 2023, or I don't know about the holiday. I feel like enough people need to know exactly what they're dealing with here with the DualSense Edge, enough to build momentum come holiday of next year. Now, going on to specifics. This article then says, the DualSense Edge's silhouette is practically identical to the standard controller, but that's by no means a bad thing. The DualSense is already a sleekly designed, comfortable pad that didn't need much refinement in the first place. Its aesthetic differences are more apparent. The central touchpad is a clean matte black, emblazoned with PlayStation square, circle, cross, and triangle iconography. The D-pad and face buttons have also been changed to black from the original's white. I can get behind that. I really do like that clash. The bottom of the controller, which houses the mic, PS button, and analog sticks, is now a glossier black. The sticks themselves, triggers, as well as the back of the controller all look to have a much more sturdy and textured grip too. I will admit, I'm a little bit of a sucker for textured grips. Whenever Xbox really, when the Series X got confirmed and they were like, yeah, the standard Series X controller is going to have that little textured grip around the handles, I was like, yes, please. By far, the DualSense's biggest drawback is its meager battery life. I can contest this. That thing fucking dies like after a couple of sessions. So anywhere between 4 and 10 hours from a single charge, it falls well short of the pads on competing systems. We don't have concrete information on the DualSense Edge battery life just yet, but it's something that Sony would keep on improving over the base pad, even if it's just a marginal improvement of a few hours. Yes, please, Sony, come on, man. If you genuinely want us to get behind a $200 price tag, that battery better be nuclear driven. All right, I'm being a little hyperbolic, but the standard DualSense, if I'm not moving anywhere, if I'm going to be in front of my TV, which I'm often am when I'm playing my PS5, I have that thing hooked up all the time. I never disconnected. I might as well have a wired controller, because whenever I disconnect it, if I know I'm going to be playing something a little bit more on the frenetic side and I kind of want to feel comfortable that I'm not going to be tugging it, or the cable's not going to get hooked up to a corner and it's going to pull and I risk damaging the joints or damaging the plugs themselves at the base, I disconnect it and I kind of forget about it because I'm lost in the game. And lo and behold, right when I'm getting into a good moment, beep, boop, I get the little notification saying, hey, your DualSense is running low on battery. Like, bro, like, and it happens just so frequently. It's the one thing that I will give Nintendo's Pro Controller on, like this article mentioned before. The battery life on that Pro Controller, Nintendo, that's the only elite and prestigious thing it's got over the Xbox Elite controller. And I'm even gonna automatically assume, I know I'm jumping the gun here, I'm gonna automatically assume this on the DualSense Edge. That Pro controller from Nintendo, $80. It's very basic. There's barely any new features right there that you haven't already seen before. But I barely even have to charge that thing. I barely. Right now, I'm playing, like I early in the episode, I'm playing Pokemon Legends Arceus. Arceus, yeah, Arceus. God damn that name. I detached the controller like 5 sessions ago, and it's still going. I haven't gotten the notification yet. I don't even know where the battery is on right there, but I'm trying not to think about it too much. But I detached it. I've been playing Pokemon for a number of days on a number of sessions throughout those days. I have not gotten the low battery notification yet. That's outstanding. And maybe it's because of the cutback on these features. With DualSense Edge, I don't know what those features are, but the article goes on to list them, or at least to speculate on them. And I'm hoping that these features do not drag away from the battery, because I will happily take a battery life with that price tag. So the article here from Tech Radar then says, the DualSense Edge might look the part, but it is worthy as a pro standard pad will be judged on its features. And so far, it looks like Sony is pulling out all the stops in its regard, for the most part at least. As you would expect, the Edge is going to be primarily modular. The sticks, stick caps, and back paddles can all be swapped out and adjusted based on your personal preference, something kind of taken from the book of the Xbox Elite controller. Control layout and sensitivity are also fully customizable. Not only will players be able to fully customize their button layouts, they can also adjust stick dead zones as well as trigger travel distance and sensitivity. All this can be done on the fly from the controller itself. A dedicated FN or function button will bring up a separate UI that lets players customize the controller settings at a moment's notice. You can actually see the FN button, I think it's like towards the bottom of the back, I think. So it's kind of difficult to talk about it here on podcast, but I'm pretty sure you can find that amongst the pictures. Additionally, you'll also be able to save profiles for when you'll need them most. Switching from Demon Souls to Gran Turismo 7? That's what the article asks. Profile switching will ensure your control setup is good to go no matter what game you're playing. I gotta be honest, I doubt some people are still playing those games right now on their PS5. Lastly, you can expect all the DualSense best features to return. Haptic feedback, adaptive triggers, motion controls are all present and accounted for when it comes to the Edge. However, we currently don't know if these features will be in any way improved on the new controller. And frankly, that's really about it for the article. So that's the big thing that was shown a little bit in this trailer but not fully talked about, is that you did see, if you watch the trailer, you'll notice that the sticks, the triggers, and those back pedals are all being swapped out, and they're kind of coming out of the controller and being put in for another one. The D-pad and the buttons are being swapped out. So it's going to be modular for sure. You're going to be able to swap these things out. The FN button was shown, and as it mentions it right here, the function button, typically with a lot of gamepads, so that you can swap between profiles. So it will be interesting to see how some of these profiles will mix and match with, like I mentioned right here, the haptic feedback and the triggers and all that good stuff that the DualSense Edge is known for, or the standard DualSense. But I have to reiterate, my biggest thing here is that battery. The battery drains so terribly right now with the DualSense, with the features it already has. One can only imagine just how badly this thing is going to last with the implemented FN button and the having the controller just constantly be thinking about, like, oh, I need to be able to swap profiles on the fly. That requires battery just to even maintain that. And so, yeah, the entire time I'm just thinking to myself, if they don't improve on that battery, if they don't swap out that pack inside for something that is going to be able to justify that $200 price tag, then I personally feel like I might have to skip out on this, despite how long I've been desiring for an Elite controller that's not scuff, that's not a third party. It's an actual dedicated Sony one that can rival that of the Xbox Elite. Right now, though, I still have yet to find that perfect game to call upon for an Elite controller such as this. But with PlayStation, I don't know. Maybe Marvel Spider-Man 2, Wolverine. There's a couple of candidates right there. And will this thing even arrive prior to Xbox's brand new announced Xbox Elite Controller Core Edition? I think it's being called Elite 2 Core Controller. That's right. Just a few just a few days. Just a few fucking days after Sony's Gamescom announcement of the DualSense Edge, Xbox announces a cheaper Elite 2 Core controller. This is the article over from IGN. Excuse me. Microsoft is introducing a new version of its popular Xbox Elite Series 2 controller today, and outside of its being a new color variant, it also comes with a cheaper retail price but does not include a lot of stuff found in the standard Elite 2 controller. Pre-orders are now live over at Amazon. The Elite Wireless Controller Series 2 Core is a two-toned controller with matte black grips and a primarily white body, retailing at $129. That is really not bad, $129. But let's see exactly what you're compromising here versus the regular Elite. The Elite 2 Core is more competitively priced when compared to the standard Elite 2 controller, which costs $179. However, that cheap price tag also comes with some caveats. The main ones include the lack of a carrying case, paddles, extra thumbsticks, and a standard D-pad. So you're kind of losing a little bit of that modular ability. You can see the infographic below that shows the clear comparisons between the Elite Series and Elite Series Core 2. And yeah, as far as accessories, it is looking a little anemic because you're primarily just getting the little tool that's used to adjust the tension on the triggers and the USB-C cable. That's essentially all you're really getting with the core. You're not getting any of the paddles, the thumbsticks, the extra thumbsticks with the extra, tracking, the carrying case, and then that D-pad. You're not getting any of that stuff. So if that was a big draw for you for that Elite and you're willing to just spend that extra $50, you might as well. Because to me, it sounds like you're either going to fall in one camp or the other. Now, continuing on with the article, fortunately, there is an option to buy the additional parts that are included in the standard Elite controller. Microsoft confirmed in a press release that it will sell a new complete component pack, which includes the carrying case, charging dock, additional thumbsticks, USB-C cable, and a standard D-pad for just $59.99, $60. So you go from $130 plus the $60, $190. You might as well get the Series 2. You're saving $10. I mean, that's kind of counterintuitive, but I digress. While this is convenient for those that purchase the Elite 2 Core controller and want to get more customization out of the controller, the complete component pack is also ideal for current Elite 2 controller owners who may need replacement parts, thus increasing the lifespan of the current controller in an event a part goes missing or breaks. I will say that that's probably one, I guess you could say, optimistic way of looking at the situation, or the inclusion or the existence of a component pack. Microsoft also confirmed that it will bring the Elite 2 controller to the Xbox Design Lab sometime this holiday season, marking the first time an Xbox Elite Series controller will be available in the Xbox Design Lab since the customization program launched back in 2016. That is one of the things that does entice me, though. I mean, it's probably going to be a while before I can even be in a comfortable financial state to be like, yeah, I'm going to spend this extra money of not only getting an Elite Pro controller for Xbox, but also get a customized Xbox Design Lab controller. Because if you guys know anything, or if I haven't already said this before, I love that Xbox has the Xbox Design Lab feature. The fact that you can customize different facets of the controller with different color schemes, and you can go from a matte finish to a glossy finish or a metallic finish, depending on which part, because I know some parts do it and some parts don't, but you can include rubberized grips or not. You can have the D-pad be, like I said, metallic or standard. I love that shit. I love being able to swap the different colors and have like my perfect Clash controller of black and red, or red and black with, like the main color be black and then the accent color be red with the joysticks and the buttons and stuff. I love that shit. If they're gonna start implementing that on the Elite controller for both the Core and the Elite 2 in the holiday season, yeah. But I understand that it's a huge luxury, and say the Elite 2 goes for 180, I can only imagine they're probably going to round it up to like 250 for an Elite 2 customized controller from the Xbox Design Lab. Like that extra $80 it's going to be to customize a controller to your preference with all those different features and color schemes and whatnot. So, if you have that money to burn, or if by then you manage to hold on to that tax return, that will sound pretty awesome. And that's ultimately one of the things that Xbox can have on their camp that PlayStation won't, because as of right now, there's no confirmation that the DualSense Edge will come in any kind of colors. That's another thing that they can do outside of the better, stronger battery. Give us some more colors. We saw with the standard DualSense and the plates on the PS5 console itself, it took them forever to give us brand new colors for those things. And even right now, I would say that the color schemes are kind of limited. And they're slowly chugging out new schemes. Just recently, they announced the camouflage theme. And I could have sworn that a camouflage color for the DualSense, the DualShock 4 for the PS4 came out way sooner in that life cycle than we're getting here now for the PS5. Like, I don't know why they're so stubborn with these colors. So stubborn, in fact, that when other companies try to do their own plates for the PS5, guess what? They sued them. All right? You guys remember the whole debacle with D-Brand and all that stuff? Yeah. So, I hate to say it, but as enthusiastic as the DualSense Edge could be, there's still some things that are a little bit of a little bit more priority that PlayStation should focus on. Otherwise, Xbox will still give them a run for their money as far as peripherals go. From exclusives and buyouts and business practices are concerned, that's a whole nother beast entirely. One that I will tackle on next week's episode, because I know that Jim Ryan and Phil Spencer have been saying some shit lately, but I need to gather more information for that stuff, and that's going to be punted over to next week, along with my discussions on everything that, like I said, was going to be the calm before the storm. So the Disney+Marvel Showcase, which has probably already gone down by the time you're listening to this, and this gets posted on podcast platforms and the YouTube channel. So we're going to be covering that. We're going to be covering the Ubisoft Forward, everything else that's coming out of D23, because even outside of the gaming side of things, we also got Marvel Studios and whatever else that they got planned on Saturday the 10th, and so many other things to cover, probably some new trailers to talk about and react to. Who knows? We shall see. Maybe then we'll also get the rumors addressed of possibly a brand new Nintendo Direct or a brand new Sony PlayStation Showcase that's going to show us some Spider-Man 2 footage, some stuff about Wolverine, some stuff about the Indiana Jones game. I don't know. We'll see. But something, like I said, is kind of brewing on the horizon. And hopefully I'll be here next week to talk to you guys about it. Unless it's Spider-Man related, then you guys will have to tune in to the YouTube channel where I'll be doing reactions, breakdowns, and opinion pieces about all that stuff that breaks down involving the webhead. And if you guys want to stay in tune for that, of course, you could always find the links in the description to check out the YouTube channel, the website, and then, of course, the social media platforms, Twitter and Instagram, or you can simply just search me up at DarkspiderDavid if you guys want to keep in touch there. Outside of that, though, the only other thing that I will say is, guys, it has occurred to me that this podcast is going up, at least on social media platforms. On podcast platforms. I don't know about the YouTube channel, but on podcast platforms, it's going up 1 year since it launched. It was September 8th or 9th or whatever. It was that first weekish of September that I launched the DarkspiderCast, and here we are 1 year later. I was hoping for it to be a little bit on the more eventful side. I was even contemplating rather, of having guests, of having Surface Assassin as a guest or somebody else as a guest in podcast format. We've just all been really busy that I haven't been able to, materialize that. So apologies if it wasn't any more eventful than this, but like I said, this was the calm before the storm. I feel like more stuff is going to be coming here on the horizon in the next couple of weeks, and I wanted to save my energy, for my energy and my voice on mic for that. But at the same time, I also wanted to kind of give you guys just a big old hearty thank you for those of you listening through Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and then everywhere else that Anchor decides to share this podcast to. Thank you. Thank you for listening to me, either in the car, in the shower, wherever, in the gym, wherever it is that you guys listen to this. I see the analytics, I see the plays going down, I see the engagement, and I'm thankful. I genuinely am. I appreciate you guys. And here we are, 1 year into recording this podcast. And it's funny because out of all the things that I create, the podcast was honestly the one that I was looking at and going, I don't know how long we'll see about doing about this. And here we are, 1 year and 4.5-ish seasons in, and we're still going. And it's been a worthwhile journal that I've been keeping up to date with. And one that I'm hoping to continuing to do so for the time being. So once again, guys, thank you. And until next week's episode, stay humble. Peace out.